Good morning all, it's Postbag. Terrible light today, it's really overcast. Let's start with the oldest one, electronic parts. This one came in quite a while ago. Let's see what's in it. Blue wire and yellow wire. And these complement the black and red wire which I bought recently. I haven't used it much. And there was a question over what actually it's made of, because I've got a feeling it's silver in colour, not copper. So let me just strip that back and let's take a closer look. Now this comes up now and again. What wire stripper do I use? This is a Y-Con wire stripper number 5. And I got this from Claes Olsen, I think. It's also available from Rapid Electronics, probably available online as well. Okay, let's strip that back and take a much closer look at that. Yeah, so this is silver in colour, but the question is, what's it made of? So I'm going to do a little bit of a scrape on it and see if it's tinned copper. I think other suggestions were aluminium, which would be pretty weird, steel, which I think is unlikely. Now I think it's probably tinned copper, but I need to scrape it to see if I can see the copper colour underneath. So I've got a blade here. Let's get scraping. It might be quite heavily tinned, so it might take a while for the copper colour to be revealed. Can't see that. Well, it doesn't seem to be revealing a copper colour. Let's have a closer look. So the filings, the scrapings, are all sort of silvery colour. Is that starting to show coppery colour? I should turn the light off in this room because that's a fluorescent, compact fluorescent, and it's probably a little bit yellow. So let me do that. Yeah, I can't really decide. If I put the magnifying glass in front of it, it looks distinctly coppery colour. And that's only natural daylight now. I've not got my artificial light on. If I take that away, it's not so obviously copper coloured. I think it must be copper, but with a very heavy coating of tin or some other silvery substance, but I'm just not entirely sure. Now what can I do to that copper? Is there something I could dip it in which would show that it's very definitely copper? I have put a magnet on it and it wasn't attracted to that, so it's not steel or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it's tin copper. And if I look at it on the back side where I didn't scrape it, it's definitely silvery. Look at it on the front side where I have scraped it. I think you can definitely see a difference in the colour from that silvery colour to that coppery colour. Tinned copper, without a doubt. So this is a flexible stranded of UL 1007 24 American wire gauge wire cable, available in 4 colours. Yellow, blue, red, black. It's 10 meters and they're saying it's 300 volts. Doesn't actually say whether it's copper, but now this drop down box, which I don't think appears when I do screen capture, so I'll just put the camera to that in a moment. But anyway, these reels are $1.65 each. That's for 10 meters, free shipping, 1,500 sold. That's from Alice 110 1983. And just a quick bit of camera pointing at monitor so you can see this drop down. The colours are indeed red, black, yellow and blue, and it seems that all the sellers selling these particular reels of wire only have these 4 colours. And in common with many of the Chinese sellers, this seller, Alice, is currently away until February the 5th. Of course, that's for Chinese New Year, so it's all quiet in China at the moment. Okay, next up we have an LED module from Rose. Now I haven't been able to decipher this. I can't work out what this one is, so this is going to be as much a surprise to me as it is to you. Looks like it might be a kit. It's got displays on it. Okay, I think this is a digital clock kit. We've got a 4-digit display here with the sort of colon type indicator LEDs in the middle, designed really for a clock. It uses the 89C 2051, which I've never heard of. 12 megahertz crystal, couple of buttons, a buzzer, so it must be an alarm clock, I guess. So let's have a look at that chip. Right, this is an Atmel AT89C2051. Now, I don't really know my Atmel processors, so is this an older one or a newer one? Get the funny feeling this might be an older one before the AT Megas and the AT Tinies. So yeah, that's interesting. We'll do that as a kit build fairly soon. There are instructions here supplied as a sort of peel-off sticker on this backing sheet, which is a bit weird, but yeah, that should be enough information to get this thing up and running. So this item is new C51 4 bits, so 4 digits, digital electronic clock, production suite. These are all suites. Maybe kit and suite are similar words in Chinese. This is very cheap, $2.43, free shipping, and this came from Shenglongzi. This seller also away, but only until February the 2nd. This C51, is that an Atmel with a slightly different architecture? Is it an Atmel produced chip that isn't an AVR core? I honestly don't know, so I'm guessing. A little bit of information on this kit. It can run anywhere from 3 volts to 6 volts. But this struck me. It has a 1.2mm thick PCB by the military grade FR4 made of sheet metal. I don't think so. And next we have, and I think I've got to be a bit careful cutting this because there are wires in here. We have 3 of these, which are 9-volt battery boxes, but the, well actually it's on here. It says 9-volt battery box case cover holders for guitar bass pickup black. Something to do with guitars. Now, I bought these because it's the only thing I could find which was a 9-volt PP3 box which ended in a JST2 pin, and that's really handy, well, for things like the electronic dice. Is the polarity right on there? Yes, it is. I'm not sure that polarity on these JST2 pins is always the same, but that's correct for that. So I can power this up immediately, except that I can't because I've just opened this. And the little metal springs down in there, one of them still moves back into the hole, but the other one, the hole's much smaller and it's misaligned, and that's crushing the spring, so I can't close that without destroying it. Stupid! So now I've got to dive down into here with a screwdriver and try and lift that spring back into that not very big hole. I've done it. But that's really awful design. So you can't really open that too far, otherwise that right-hand spring, which is in a much smaller cut-out hole at the bottom of here, you can't see it very well, but just falls out and then it gets crushed behind this levered door. It's not a very good design, is it? Anyway, let's put a 9-volt battery in. Which way around is it? Does it tell you? Yes, it does. Positive that way. I'm not sure this 9-volt... Oh, it's come out again. And it's dropped down behind that hole. That hole needs to be bigger. I'll lift that spring up. This is really irritating. And try and get it to fit in that hole and not have it drop out. What a stupid design. Right, let's get this in. Oh, it doesn't go in now. It won't go in. What's up with this thing? Right, this is a really rubbish design because down in there, you can see if I shine the torch on it, there's a big hole which easily moves around the spring, the left-hand spring, and there's a tiny small hole. Why? It can't be anything to do with the pos and neg. That's just stupid. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe it's designed for pos and neg on the battery, these circular things, to actually protrude through there. So maybe it is okay. So I'll drop the battery down in there. Perhaps those springs aren't meant to sit through the holes. And then you close it, but it's all scrunching. And that's not closing properly. So it really doesn't work. I think one of the problems here is that one of these springs, you can see from this PCB, has been mounted sort of biased up and one has been mounted biased down. I'm trying to get this piece out, but it won't come out. I think I'm going to have to destroy this in the name of science. Right, this piece needs to come out, otherwise I can't see what's going on. Come out, you swine. I don't know how to make it come out. Oh yes, that seems to have come out now. And now we can see the problem. I think what was intended here is that the metal end of the spring was just bent over and placed through the hole, but this one isn't. The metal end of the spring is bent into the centre of the circular diameter and actually comes out aligned with the centre line of the spring. So they've ended up with two springs completely asymmetrically placed on this board, and I don't think it's meant to be like that. That board's going to have to come out, I think. Yeah, more destruction here, so let's get that bit of board out. It's held in on these welded or heated over plastic studs, but I don't think they're supposed to be that misaligned. So here's the board. Now you can see that the end of the wire spring is bent in towards the centre of the spring, and then there's a little bend back which goes through the hole in the fiberglass board. But I don't think that's meant to happen. I think these springs were meant to have the end of the spring end at the circumference and then just bent down so that they'd end up on an alignment across the centre. So really they've used the wrong springs here. They probably ran out of springs, got another company to manufacture the springs, they misinterpreted the instructions, and they've ended up with this monstrosity which just doesn't work. It's madness. Right, I've opened another one and you can immediately see that there's a difference in the place where the holes have been drilled. This one they've been drilled, well, slightly off centre, but more centred on this board. This one's been drilled really towards the top and towards the bottom. What's the third one look like? Ah, well, that's again got the two holes reasonably well centred on the fiberglass board. So this one actually is an anomaly, and this one would never have worked anyway. So I think actually what I'm going to do is just cut off that 2-pin JST, and I've just got myself a spare 2-pin JST cable. Handy. This rubbish can all go in the bin. And now I've got two of these battery boxes and they're probably okay. Right, let's insert the battery into that box. It's quite a tight squeeze. Close it down and see if it works on the electronic dice. Pause to pause. Yeah, look at that. And what's the number? 3. 5. I'm getting distracted now. So these are 9-volt battery case holder cover box for active guitar bass pickup. I suppose the idea is that you sink this into the body of the guitar and use those 4 screws to attach it. Black. So these are, now I bought 3, but this looks like it's only 1. $2.41 each plus a 15-cent shipping charge. And these 3, or ended up being 2 because one of them was bad, came from Zhang Bao Bao 2013. And finally, and these rattle, these are fairly recent. I didn't order these too long ago, so let's take a look. And they are screwdrivers. So yeah, these are ceramic bladed screwdrivers, so not quite plastic and certainly not metal, ceramic. Let's get a bit closer in on those heads. Yeah, they're quite difficult to see. Most are flat bladed, but there is one here which is a cross point. Can't really tell if it's a Phillips or a posi drive. I suppose from the markings it's strictly a Phillips. There are some broader bladed ones and some very fine bladed ones, and I wanted these of course for twiddling the little trimmer capacitors, the variable capacitors on the frequency counter kit. Let's have a look at that. Right, so there's the variable trimmer capacitor on the frequency counter kit which I built recently, and certainly there are enough different sizes in this set to find the right one to twiddle that trimmer, and that of course won't cause any electrical problems with metal touching metal. So that's what I wanted it for. Actually, I've got some of these trimmers on the scope, so let's actually play with that. So here's the DSO138 oscilloscope, which you can get in a kit form and build yourself. I'm going to plug it into my favourite power bank, and I do get a lot of questions about this power bank. Where can I get it? Well, it's the QD184SX, and you can't get it. Actually, I think there are one or two sellers on AliExpress still selling it, but no, generally speaking, this has been discontinued, which is a huge shame because it's absolutely fab. Let's just see if that comes on 100%. Will it come on at 9 volts? Yes, it has come on at 9 volts. Okay, plug that in there. The scope comes on. So I'm looking for a replacement for that, which actually can be bought. That's on its way. Right, there's the scope. Why aren't we seeing, probably because it's too fast, that wave? And I just need to get the trigger down in amongst this slot. Actually, if I... which way is it? That way. Oh yeah, that's done it. That's got the trigger. Oh, that's good enough. And then what I'm trying to do with these trimmers is, well, let's get in a bit closer, but take out a little overshoot on the leading edge, I think it is. Right, I'm having trouble getting that to sit in the slot of the trimmer capacitor, so I think that one is probably too wide. Let's go for a narrower one. Oh, that's very narrow. Oh, that's a bit narrower. Let's try this one. Are these marked in any way? 100B. Ah, 0.4 times 1.3. What was this one then? Ah, 0.4 times 2.0. So now I'm using a 1.3. Let's see if this is any better. Can I get it in the hole? Yeah. Right, I think that's the overshoot, which you can see just on the leading edge of that square wave. Oh, and the trailing edge, there's some undershoot. And it's just a case of taking that out. So there is lots of overshoot and undershoot. And if I turn the trimmer, it's not a very definite fit in there. These trimmer capacitors are really horrible things. So I'm just trying to eliminate that over and undershoot. But of course I've got also this noise, which the early versions of this scope were plagued with. I have done the modification. I'll do a video about that at some point. Right, so take that out. That looks about right. There is a bit of undershoot there, but it's kind of with the noise. Yeah, that's probably good enough. Now, if you're interested, I can probably show you the modification to the scope. Let's take the power off so that I can start lifting this board off. It's a bit tricky. It really doesn't want to come off that. Ah, there we are. So underneath, it's all to do with digital grounding and analog grounding. Let's get the pencil. And what you have to do is lift out this capacitor, lie it on its side, and let's get in a bit closer. Yes, you have to lie it on its side and connect the positive to the top of that inductor, which I think says L4. This looks like it's C26. The negative, you attach a piece of wire, you run it round to this capacitor here, which I think is C15. It has had its negative side lifted out of the board, so its negative side is now attached only to this wire. The other side is left in the board. So what you've done is you've taken these two capacitors out, lifted their negative sides away from where they were connected, which I think was digital ground, and then routed them round to analog ground, which is on the top of C8. And you can see on the underside of the board how that's analog ground and how these are digital ground. Yeah, so the capacitors that have been lifted out were over here somewhere in this digital ground area. The analog circuitry is bordered by this sort of gap running all the way around here. Probably see it as well there. And I think the capacitor it's soldered to, let me just check that. Right, it's right down here in this corner, is one of the capacitors which is grounded to analog ground, and the other two capacitors were grounded to digital ground, and that's the problem. So you lift them out, or one side of each of them, run a wire down to the analog ground, and that helps with those noise spikes. But don't do this if you've got a new version of the DS0138, because it's already had the problem dealt with. Let's just make sure the DS0138 is still working. It scares me a bit, this scope, particularly the LCD, because when I first got this it was the LCD that failed. But yeah, that's booting up and that's working fine. Good. So these are 7 pieces full type adjust frequency screwdriver anti-static ceramic set hand tools. $5.94, free shipping, and these came from Cool Man Love It 2015. And I would say these are reasonably good quality. Some of the tips are a little bit, I don't know, bent or twisted. The Phillips, the carvings on the Phillips don't look like they're brilliantly cut. But I think, yeah, these are of moderate quality, so they're pretty good. And so these are today's Postbag items. And once again, a huge thank you to everyone who donates money via Patreon, because it's that money via Patreon that enables me to make these Postbag videos. If you would like to donate, there's a link here that'll take you through to my Patreon page, and you can help make Julian's Postbag videos. Cheerio.